Hi everyone, this is Professor E, and thank you for joining us. So, in today's lecture, we are going to talk about inheritance, the concept of inheritance. As the name implies, inheritance means the type of relationship between two classes in which one class can inherit. Inherit means have access to attributes or functions or members of other classes. So we're going to have an example here. That's the best way to understand how the inheritance works. So we're going to use an example of two classes. Employee, which is going to be the base class or the parents class, and then the manager class, which is going to be the child class or the subclass. So let's start with the employee class first. So here I'm using Visual Studio. I'm going to create the first class. So let me save it first in a folder. I called it employee info. So I will go straight to that folder. So employee info, as you can see right here, I'm going to select it. And I'm going to call the project employee info. So create. Okay, so it's empty project, and then we are going to have three files like I showed you in the previous lecture when we did the the students class. So we're going to right click on the project name, and then we're going to go add and then class. Okay, so this is the class name. We are going to call it employee. Okay, as you can see, just like the last time, two files are created automatically by the program: the .h, the header file, and the CPP file. So click OK. So first we'll start with the header file. As you can see, like what we did the last time with the students class. So the header file has no implementation, only the header of the functions. So here let's start with this statement, that like what we did last time. So we put if not define, and then the name is employee. Define it. Again, we add this statement because we want to make sure that this file is not added more than one time. Otherwise, going to create some issues. So employee, so we add this when we create any class. Okay, so we had this, and always make sure that you are ending with hashtag #endf. Okay, so let's use a simple example. So let's say this employee has the following attributes: the name of the employee, how many hours the employee works, like weekly, and then how much they get paid per hour. So let's just stick to three variables. We can have more, but let's just keep it simple. So we have string. First one we have to use private, and then string name, and then we can make sure we add using namespace std, and we may use also include IO stream. Okay, so we have the name of the employee, hours, how many hours they work, and then how much they get paid, pay rates. Okay, and then we're going to go to public. So we're going to start with the constructor. Constructor has the same name as the class name, employee. So we are going to need three parameters. So I have string n for the name, h for hours, and then rate for the pay rate, and then we assign them to our instance variable. So name equals n. So hours, I just explained, I already explained this in the previous example using the students class and the rectangle class. So it's going to be exactly the same thing, h, and then pay rate equals rate, okay? Or we can, because since it is a header file, we don't have actually to put this. We can put it in the other file. So we can just put here, just the header. And then we don't even have to come up with the variables, just the type. So the header, usually you don't put any implementation. You just put the data type and then the header, okay? Just like this. And the same thing for the other files or the other functions. Like we have string, get name, and then we have get hours, and then get pay rates. And then we can add one more function, maybe the weekly pay, how much they get paid weekly. So we're gonna call it weekly pay. Of course, you multiply the hours by the pay rate, but we're not going to put the implementation now. All right, so as you can see, this is the header file. It's done, okay? So now let's open the CPP file. That's where the implementation is. So we're going to basically repeat this, but we're going to put the implementation, the code, the real code. So, of course, it comes with the employee.h file. It should always be there. So here the Visual Studio added automatically. And then we are going to use or start with the constructor. But we have to mention the class name first. So it should be employee. And then you put the constructor. So we have string, hours, rates, and then we assign them. Name equals n, hours equals h, and then pay rate equals rates. Okay, so this is the construction. And then we're going to do the same thing for get name. We have to put the return type first, so string, and then we put the employee class name, and then we put get name, return name, and the same thing for the rest. Int employee, and then get hours. So if you remember, we call this accessor functions because this is how we access our attributes outside the class. So return hours, and the same thing for get pay rates, return pay rates. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to add one more, which is weekly pay. So weekly pay basically is the number of hours multiplied by the pay rate. So we're going to put the return hours multiplied by the pay rate. So this is the second file where the implementation is simple. Again, this is the third example. We had the rectangle example. We had the student example. If you get the chance, you can go over them. But it's pretty much the same process, the same steps. Okay? So this is the CPP file. Now, if I want to add the main, I can add it here. Right-click, add, and then I'm going to call it the payroll CPP. So this is where the main function will be located. So I have to have the same thing. Make sure you include the file always. Don't forget that. Employee.h. Okay. and then also the other files like IO stream using namespace std, and then of course the main function. So we're gonna have like a couple of examples before we talk about inheritance. So 0. So let's say I want to create an object of type employee. So I'm gonna put employee. I have to give it a name. So let's say E1. And then I'm gonna call the constructor. Remember, we need 3 elements. The name. So let's say here Sarah. And then let's say she works 35 hours. And then she gets paid $40 an hour. So always make sure that these elements, they match. As you can see right here, they should match the constructor. String is first, that represent the name of the employee. The second one has to be an integer, so represent the hours. And then finally, the third one is the rate. So make sure that you are following the same order. Okay. Now, as you can see right here, I can display this information. For example, the name of the employee is, and then you mention the object, and then get name. Okay. And then I put also the weekly pay is, and then I'm going to put A1.weekly pay. I can add here the end of the line so they're not both in the same line. So as you can see right here, if I run the program, you're going to see that the name of the employee, see that, is Sarah, and the weekly pay is $1,400. So where did we get this $1,400? Remember, we multiplied the number of hours, 35, times 40. Okay? 35 times 40, that would be 1,400. Okay? So I'm gonna make sure like I finish the rest of the inheritance topic in the next lecture. I don't want to keep it too long. So in the next lecture, I will be talking about the second class, the subclass, which is manager, and then we're gonna learn how the inheritance works. How can we get the manager class to inherit, to access the elements, the member functions from the superclass or the parent class. Thank you for watching.